Bobby says, while I have been cycling for a while, now after discovering all the wonderful content and products you folks created earlier this year, I've been inspired to start racing. This is a natural occurrence. Bobby, way to go. That's the point. He says, obviously, COVID-19 has disrupted racing in a massive way, delaying, if not outright forcing events to cancel. And up where I live in Washington State, currently the only road-specific races that have an actually scheduled start date in 2021, though who knows if that will stay put or not, are multi-day stage races. So typically 4 races over a 3-day span and include 1 or 2 road races and a Merc style time trial and a crit. This is a really common amateur format here in the United States, but I assume that other people listening to this may have different formats. We're going to talk about stage races in general, not specific to this format. He says, as a complete bike racing newbie with no real experience, and he says with racing strategy beyond watching a bunch of your race analysis videos, which by the way, if you watch that and truly internalize that information, you're already steps ahead of people. So there's just so much information that you can get from those.
Ooh, watch NorCal Cycling too.
Yes, another great one. If you partner those two, it's like a master's program. You're like an MBA program for cycling. So he says, and he says, so I'm going to reread that section. As a complete bike racing newbie with no real experience with racing strategy other than watching your videos, riding in large packs, and so on, is it a bad idea to use a bigger event like this, a stage race, as my debut to the racing world? Or should I wait for some smaller events to more gradually introduce myself to racing? I'm confident that my fitness will be in a great place for whatever event I end up targeting, thanks to TrainerRoad. But I'm concerned about I would be biting off way more than I can chew for my experience level by jumping right into a multi-day event. So do you have any advice on this? And he finishes off with saying, thanks so much, and 2 thumbs way up for all that you folks do. The podcast, videos, and product have been such a huge help for me, and I'm sure many others in surviving 2020. If I could add to that too, the blog, fantastic articles constantly coming out there, and then our forum as well. So great community there. Okay, so I'm going to pitch this one to Pete first. So Pete, the core question, are stage races a bad idea for a beginner racer for their debut?
I don't think there's any bad debut race. I mean, there's probably some, but really the idea is you want to get your feet wet as soon as you possibly can and learn as much as you can in a short period of time. Like that's what we all want out of bike racing. And a stage race means you get to dip your toes in a bunch of different pools with a bunch of other people who are dipping their toes in the same pools. And you just, that learning curve is so fast when you're racing day after day after day. So I think, to me, this is ideal. If I could choose to start all my seasons with stage races or sprinkle in more stage races over the course of the season, I would always do it. It's right.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's almost like when you go to any sort of like accelerated learning program, or like if it's like an offsite thing that you're doing where it's just like super focused for a short period of time. But what that allows you to do is kind of like learn, iterate, and just constantly go through that process. And yeah, it honestly, like your first bike race, it's not about how you finish. So I see what you mean, Pete, about saying like there's not a bad first race in that regard, because it's like your result doesn't really matter. Instead, what it's about is what you learn along the way, right? Nate, what are your thoughts on this one?
Ram is a bad first race. But other than that, this is the best way. Like, if you can put them together, if you can do lots of crits on the same day, because a lot of us, especially in lower categories, if you're a masters racer or they have overlapping categories, you can do multiple races the same day. That is the best way. I feel like you can know, oh, I missed this move, or I did this wrong, or you just get more comfortable, which is huge for new racers to be able to be comfortable in the pack. And then on the second and third race, it feels so much better. So little stage races, like, well, this is a pretty good, awesome stage race, actually, 4 days or 4 races. 100% do it. Try different things. Like Chad's talked about this a lot. You don't have to win. You could learn different ways that you can ride the race. What does it feel like to be in a breakaway? How's that? What does it feel like to be in the sprint? What does it feel like to tail gun? What does it feel like to try to stay at the front? There's what does it feel like to sag climb? All these skills that you learn in the videos, you're going to say, hey, I'm going to try to apply it here and see how it works. Unless hopefully you have good fitness. I've been in the races where I just want to survive and not get dropped. And you can do some of those skills and stuff, but if you sag climb wrong, there's no room for error and you were gone. and then you ride by yourself for like 40 miles, which is
yeah. One of our great copywriters, Jesse, he mentioned, so he used to be a teacher, and he mentioned something, and it was a very applicable quote. He says, no matter how good the student is before vacation, they're worse after vacation. And usually what he's getting at there is the fact that when you have time away from something, you're not as good as you were when you were stuck into that steady rhythm. And this is an opportunity for you to really lock into a steady rhythm and to race a bunch and to figure things out and to iterate in between races and do all that stuff. Because in the end, like, you don't have to care about the GC results at all at this point, right? Like, instead focus on like the smaller wins. That's probably a good point to hand off to you, Amber, on this. More like the actual processes or things you can do amidst the stage race to make sure that you're getting the most out of it. Because it could just be, if you aren't taking like a growth mindset and looking for opportunities to improve and measure and that sort of stuff, it could be really overwhelming. But if instead you know exactly what you should be looking for, you could make it successful.
Big time. Yeah. And apologies in advance. There's some noise going on in my house today. So if you hear some background noise, yeah, we're all in the same boat these days. I totally agree. And I think it's exactly what Pete and Nate and Jonathan, you've said, is I think stage races are actually just an awesome learning environment, especially as regards process goals. There is a lot going on in stage races. So probably the best thing to do is to pick 1 or 2 goals that you're going to really focus on each day. And as a new rider, probably one of the most important ones, the 2 most important ones I think you could focus on are positioning, learning how to feel comfortable in the group and learning how to move through the group. A good way to work on that is to shadow a trusted, more experienced athlete during the race. And you can even talk to them, approach them and say, hey, I'm new. I'd really like to learn how to position better. I'd like to kind of follow your wheel around for the day. Honestly, most of the time, nobody would mind. The other one is hydrating and fueling well. So getting used to eating on the bike in the middle of a race when there's a lot going on. Those are some really kind of basic skills that stage races are wonderful for trying, because the positioning thing, you're going to learn so much on the first day that you can then go and apply the second day. And then you're going to learn so much on the second day that you can then go and apply immediately the day after that. And it's really cool. The other thing that's neat about stage races is there's so much going on. And on one hand, this could be really overwhelming, but also you could think of it as just giving you this whole host of opportunities for learning. So there's the general classification, which is, the overall winner for the whole stage race. There's also stage wins. There's also a points jersey, probably a sprint jersey. So intermediate point sprints. There's probably a king or queen of the mountain jersey. There's preems. You could aim for consistency. You could look to just see, can you actually, while you're trying to work on your process goals, maybe read the race a little bit and figure out, why is that person sprinting for points and which teams are going for GC and which teams seem to be going for stages, and how are those different strategies that are going on around you affecting people's decision making in the race. So there's just, it's such a rich learning environment where you can kind of pick and choose the things that you really, really want to work on and completely ignore the rest. So if you feel that the positioning is coming pretty easily to you and you want to take on some more, it's there for the taking. And if you feel like it's too much, you can totally zero down and focus on one thing and not worry about the rest. So I don't see any downside to this, honestly.
One thing that Amber said about asking someone, I want to follow your wheel. In the lower categories, the chance that you will find a Pete or an Amber is probably very low. And a lot of people who think that they know what they're doing, they don't always do it correctly. And then also, too, Pete and Amber, how often do you get in the wrong spot sometimes, right? And it's hard then in the middle of the race to be like, oh, I messed up, like looking behind you. Don't pay attention right here. That can be... I'm thinking of other things of very high level cyclists who I thought would, it's the last lap, let's do it. I'm going to put you in my position. And we're like 15 wheels back. And I'm like, what are we doing here? This isn't the right position. And so just be aware of that. But if you can find a Peter or Amber who's right most of the time, that would be amazing.
It doesn't have to be somebody, who's really good. One of the things you can do is kind of watch the group on the first day and figure out, like, that person seems to always be where I want to be, or that person seems to always be there when the breakaway goes. And then you can say, okay, maybe that's the person I want to try to shadow tomorrow.
And I think I think that's really one of the really nice things about stage races is it removes the variable of a bunch of different people showing up for a one-day race where you have no idea who it is and what's going to go on and how the race is going to be attacked. If you're with the same 40 or 100 or whatever people every day for multiple days in a row, you're going to be able to pick out who you should be around when they're doing a good job. And it also, you don't have to worry about someone coming from out of town or whatever. You've seen all these people racing in the same races that you've been doing for multiple days. You're gonna have a much better idea of what's gonna happen and what you do and don't have to worry about. And so for people who get really anxious for racing, remind yourself that a stage race is actually less anxious because there's less variables going on, which is for some people that's very, very important.
Yeah, and it seems counterintuitive, but it's very true. Sorry, go ahead, Nate.
No. It's Zoom. I wish every race was a stage race that I did. It's so much more efficient for time, especially for us because we have to drive. It's so much fun. There's more opportunities for points. You learn faster. What Pete said, it's way more fun when you know everyone. And then to Amber and Pete's point too, let's say someone's in the great position on the first day for the sprint. Well, oftentimes those same people are in the great position for day 2, day 3, day 4, right? It's the same kind of mix of 5 people and everyone else is behind. So in that case, when you can identify them, last 3 laps, get on their wheel and get in that right position if you want to be in that sort of situation, which can be a little scary for new racers for sure.
Totally. And I know science exists on this, but I don't have it. I guess I don't have any science to back this up. But when you do change, I know, strange, right? When you do change the circumstances of any sort of a situation, it can have a profound effect on learning. Like for children, for example, my son goes to a Montessori school and it's super cute in their classroom. Like everything is sized for a child. Everything is like organized in a very consistent manner so that they know what to expect. And we did the same thing at our house for him as well. So we tried it. He has tiny chairs. He has tiny everything, right? It's all like kind of like his size. But one of the things that they point to with that, and I've noticed this as well, it doesn't take much, but if you change your circumstances, a lot of the time you forget what you know, or at the very least, it makes it a lot harder to observe the important details and filter signal and noise. Because really, that's the best part of the stage race, in my opinion, is the fact that once again, since it's the same competition, that allows you to pick up way more information because you waste so much. It's not wasteful, but you spend so much energy, mental energy and focus in a race trying to figure out who you're racing against. That's like one of the biggest things that you need to do when you're in a fresh race and you don't know who they are. You have to figure out who you're up against because that's really the main thing. It's less about you racing the course, more about you racing other people. So when you're in the stage race, it suddenly removes so many variables. And just like any equation, if you remove a bunch of variables and you only have a couple to focus on, it's a way easier equation to solve. So it's the same thing. If you can make anything more consistent, then you're going to accelerate your learning or simplify your context to make it so that you can learn faster. I miss stage races. Just like talking about this, I want to race so bad, especially stage races.
They're so fun.
Aren't they? Yeah. Pete and I actually did a 10-mile TT, socially distanced, totally asynchronous TT. Thanks, Nate.
Pete, who won?
So
Pete's just giggling.
Hold on here.
Let me ask John. And by how much?
Let me set the scene here. Okay. So we laid out a 10-mile TT, a lot of 10-mile TT courses. Mm-hmm. This one I think is our flattest one, but Pete and I had an idea. We're just going to ride our local crit course also for 10 miles. And so that'll be really flat too, but flat course. And we did it at totally different times. I saw Pete and kind of waved to him from across the road when he was leaving and I was coming up to it. But 10 miles, Pete and I in totally different spots with training and everything else. I lost to Pete by 5 seconds. 25-minute time trial, and I lost to him by 5 seconds. Kills me.
Did you wax your chain?
No, I did not.
There's 5 seconds right
I didn't either,
guaranteed.
though. So next weekend, I'm definitely waxing the chain for the 10 miles. And yeah. I do think we're going to try to continue to do these because I need something to look forward to be totally honest. At the most basic level, I need something to be excited about in a short time duration away from now.
Okay, cool. Yeah. We'll talk about
You want to do them, Nate?
Saturday's my day off, but if we do a long gravel race or ride, I'd like to, inside of that gravel ride, we should have a 10-mile TT. That would be dope.
Sure.
10-mile gravel TT.
you could also you're welcome to do it on Sunday too. Yeah, I mean, I know the weather might be different and that sort of a thing, but it's not like Pete and I have any sort of, it's not like it's an official thing. We just planned out 10 miles, and anytime you can in the weekend, go and do it. So
I like this thing called structured training, and I follow a training plan. And Sundays are pretty important rides for me, actually. I have that be the most important ride because I have Saturday off. So
Gotcha.
It's 10 miles isn't the same as a whole bunch of VO2 max. If you like this video, make sure you give us a thumbs up.
if you didn't like this video, you can give it a thumbs down, but let us know what you would have done differently in the comments below.
If you want to see more of these videos, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. And if you want to become a faster cyclist, check out TrainerRoad.com.
Do it.
If you think I have better hair than Jonathan, give it a thumbs up. If not, leave a comment.
My hair is better than his.